Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome back. We are live from Leipzig, Germany with the DreamHack Open in Rocket League, and it's day 3, Championship Sunday. We have all of our top teams from around the world in attendance. We started with 26 and we are down to 8. 4 from North America, 4 from Europe, all competing for that trophy there you see in the middle of the main stage, and $50,000. Welcome to the show. My name's Axel Toss. Special thanks to our sponsors, Corsair, Astro, Psionics, and Monster Energy. What a day this is going to be. What a weekend this has been so far, and I'm very happy to be joined by 2 analysts here on the analyst desk, Gibbs and Achieves. Gentlemen, how are you feeling right now?
Feeling so good. I couldn't make it through day 2. It was too exciting, so I had to take a break, but I am back for day 3. I'll be here all day, no matter what, Axel.
All right.
We saw a bunch of really good games yesterday, and it only gets better from here. And 7 games, and what, best of 5s and 7s all the way through? Let's do it.
Yeah, 1 winner.
Yep.
Coming down to it.
Only 8 teams left, and again, we started with 26. A lot of Rocket League this weekend, the first stop for DreamHack. But what an exciting day 2. It ended up being full of dramatics.
First player there is Let's start. He does find a lock on target! We are all tied up!
We have no idea at this stage. It's been so close between these teams.
Shot on target! What a pass! What a shot! Made it again. One final chance, but guess who to make it happen? Very big over the top. What a save from Chicago. Number 1 comes in. It's the 4. Game 1 to Dignitas. Shot, however, time still ticking away. Very big. Can he be the difference maker? He is. We asked for him to step up against the dudes, and he has. What? Are you kidding me? What a shot here! Him to end up reaching. Minute and 20 still remaining, all tied up 1-1 in our first game of this series. A spot in day 3 of the line, but what a demo! Chicago makes it 2-1. What an end to game 3. It is still not over. Garrett sets it up on target. Fire burner. Mid boosts. Make that light a little bit more difficult than that. That can go in, and that will go in. Shaynaps, you are nuts.
Oh my goodness, that last goal, JNaps, it is not allowed, it's too good, stop it. Actually, keep it coming, man. Just absolutely amazing with that goal. JNaps sending G2 into this 8-team bracket. We started with 2 rounds of group stages on day 1 and day 2. It all boils down to this. 8 teams in the single elimination bracket, quarterfinals, best of 5. And look at this, guys. 4 European teams in the top side of the bracket, 4 North American teams in the bottom side of the bracket. No matter what, we're going to have a North America versus European final.
This couldn't be more perfect. We had 13 RLCS teams here. We're down to 7. There's 1 team from the rival series, Dignitas. They're still alive, and they won both their groups. Yeah. So they're looking really strong as well, so watch out for them.
Yeah, and of course there's a couple of different teams you really got to keep your eye on. NRG with Torment playing, and of course Dignitas, like you said, a big win in their group. So perhaps a good run from them. Always got to watch out for Gale Force, though. Yeah,
and speaking towards those surprises, Gale Force, a lot of people, all right, they're going to be in the final 8 bracket. But again, there's some teams in this round of 8 bracket that are probably surprising to a lot of people. Dignitas making the run that they've made has been absolutely incredible. The dudes almost made it into the round of 8 by taking out guess who? I'm sure Pashies and Fairy Peak just wiping their brows because the dudes almost took them out. They had them in the series, but guess who? Able to pull it through into the round of 8. You have Equinox, a new team, Corrupted G, Chrome, and Jacob leaving NRG to be on this Equinox team. Guess what? He's in the round of 8 as well, and that storyline is amazing as well. Going up against his old teammates, Fireburner and Garrett, that's going to be one of our quarterfinal matches.
There's so many good games here. It's like there was a script or something. It seems like it just
every time
all went to plan, and we couldn't want anything more, but we're guaranteed North America versus Europe in the grand finals. That's a problem for Europe because North America is 5-0 versus Europe when it comes down to grand finals matches, but we're in Europe, and Europe wants this win. They don't want North America walking away with that trophy. There's no way.
And of course, in an open environment, we've learned this weekend that anything can happen. I mean, we've said it a lot, but this weekend could not be any more representative of that. I want to focus on G2 as well, because this is a team coming into the tournament. We're like, okay, they just won E-League. this should be a really good team, but there are always those question marks. How are they going to play? How are they going to do on the day of? On day 1 and 2, not the most superb results from them. They actually got dropped down to the lower bracket of their group stage in day 2, but then there's some switch that's flipped. I don't know if it's JNAPs, I don't know what they do, but they're always able to bring it back, and that's exactly the drama that we saw in the later stages of yesterday.
Yeah, G2 day 1, that might have been the worst we've ever seen from G2. It's very possible. They looked terrible, but then they slowly picked it back up, and it seems like every new day they get better and better, just like E-League. So no one wants to play them. No one wants to play any of these teams, but G2, there's something about them.
There were a couple of teams that really looked kind of scrappy in day 1. We didn't get to see Gale Force until later on, and even then, it took them 1 or 2 games to really feel like they've got themselves going. So they've had some time to finally warm up. They've all been taking a long break, and now that it's day 3, you got to bring your A game.
And I want to speak towards Flipside Tactics as well. A lot of interesting storylines coming into this event. Mystic, he said, you know what, I'm sick, guys, I can't make it. We're going to have a sub come in. And there's a lot of question marks there. How are we going to do? But none other than Cooks here, leading Flipside Tactics to the round of 8, but it wasn't easy for them as well.
Yeah, they're probably my most surprised team here. Like Dignitas, like they could have made a run, and Equinox right on that bubble. But Flipside, 48 hours before we see Mystic, possibly their best player right now. He can't make it because he's sick. They bring in Jesse, who hasn't played a 3s game in probably forever. He plays ranked 2s all the time. And then Yukio, it's his first live experience. Day 1 looked shaky from them. Day 2 also looked shaky for a while, but they took down Method. Game 5 overtime. And of course, it was Cooks to score the goal.
Yeah, I mean, there's not really too much else to say other than what else can Flipside do, I suppose? Because I don't think any of us gave them any credit to make it through day 2. So well played to those guys.
Yeah.
And another storyline here, guys, that I really want to mention. Given the state of our bracket, we always talk about these different regions in Rocket League, and throughout the history of Rocket League esports, is Europe better? Is North America better? OCE coming through in a huge way in recent events, and you know the main motif, the main agreement everyone's had is like, okay, well Europe, they just look so dominant, but is that true anymore? We have G2 winning at E-League. We have a lot of European teams going on the ropes. Splice was up 2-0 on Method, on the verge of knocking them out in the group stages yesterday. Method ended up bringing it back and winning it, but we're having a lot of North American teams rise up, and I don't know what the question has become, because I thought European teams were just a lot better, but North America really showing up in a huge way.
Yeah, we had 8 teams here from North America. 7 of the 8 made it through day 1, and that was a perfect bracket for them because 3 of them were in the same group. They went 7-2 on day 1 versus Europe.
Yes.
And the 2 losses, they played those teams again in a rematch, and they beat them to move on. So basically a perfect day, NA versus EU. But day 2, much more even story. It was 4-4, NA versus Europe. 4 teams won their groups. I'm sorry, so between all the groups, it was 12 groups total.
Yep.
There's 6 victories for North America, 6 victories for Europe. So we're dead even. We got 4 teams from both now.
I love it.
And sure, North America might look better on day 1, but Europe's creeping back up. And there's only one more match. Europe versus NA in the grand finals. We don't want it any other way.
So I suppose that makes the question, who wins?
Yeah.
Not which region's better, it makes it who wins.
Yeah, just who wins. Yeah.
There's no convincing data anymore towards either one of these regions, and I also love the amount of respect we're seeing with a lot of these players. Like, we're asking some of the European players, hey, how are you feeling about these North American teams? And they're like, yeah, they're really good. We're looking out for them. We're not underestimating them. So that's what I love to hear from all these teams. But we're going to focus in on our first match from the quarterfinals. It's going to be a best of 5 between Guess Who and, of course, the legends themselves, Gale Force Esports. And we all know these teams have been waiting for this moment for a long time.
What a play! Gale Force showing off their world champions. Very big. Can he be the difference maker? He is.
In our off-season, since E-League, we've been playing some small tournaments, and people thought we were slowing down or having like the champion's curse because we were losing some tournaments. But we're here to prove that we are one of the best teams.
When we entered the tournament, our goal was, of course, winning the whole thing, but I think Pashimi and Freaky are both satisfied if we finish in like top 4. It will be a great achievement because tomorrow we play Gale Force. If we win them, like we beat almost the best in the tournament, so if we beat them, we can win the DreamHack.
Getting second in 2 DreamHacks in a row, like in Sweden and Atlanta, it kind of sucks, and we're here to win this one and lift that trophy.
Here we see a look at the main stage. These teams getting ready as we speak. A best of 5 between Gale Force and Guess Who. And I feel like we can dissect this a bunch as they're getting ready. Starting with Gale Force in particular, you know, this is the first major Rocket League event of 2018, right? The last really big event we had after the World Championship was the E-League Cup. And then we had the offseason, where feels like a lot of teams had breaks. There you see Turbo on the screen. Came in as a sub for Northern to win the World Championships, and then him and Gale Force has been amazing all the way through. But Gale Force, we always wondered, you know, coming into this event, how much of a break did they take? How much of their form are they holding on to? Are they still going to be a top caliber team even after all this time in the offseason? And as far as what we've seen so far, Gale Force is looking like the Gale Force we're used to.
Yeah, nearly perfect. They've only lost 1 game, and they've played some tough competition, G2 and Fnatic, and they just manhandled both of them. So Gale Force is exactly where they want to be right now. They have the #1 seed. They came through all the groups, and now they get their match against Guess Who. I don't know if you really want to play Guess Who necessarily, because they're a team that has some flash to them at times, but so far they've had a very tough bracket.
Well, Guess Who has never won versus Gale Force in a series. And they've talked about that a little bit, and that's why Fairy Peak in that interview, he's like, if we can beat Gale Force, we'll be feeling really good about even winning DreamHack, because they think they're probably one of the toughest people on there. And you can see Fairy Peak right there. I mean, he's been the man with the plan on Guess Who for who knows how long. That guy is an absolute stud.
Yep. And also, with this squad, obviously 2017, they got better and better.
Yeah.
They were the #1 team coming out of Group B from the E-League Cup, and that was supposed to be the tougher group. They unfortunately fell to G2, but this team has been getting better and better and better. So that's why, like, if I was Gale Force, I'd be a little bit more concerned than, yeah, we've probably beaten them a lot, but they've gotten better.
Yes.
So has Gale Force, but it's hard to get better when you're the #1 team. And we've seen that before. The champion's curse. It's very hard to keep that momentum going. So this could be an upset right here.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, in the Twitch chat, if you were here yesterday, you know what to do. It's time for us to get your input. Yes, we care about your input in the Twitch chat. I'm sorry I can't read everything you guys say, but vote on who you will win. Use the hashtag GaleForce if you think Gale Force will advance to the round of 4, and use the hashtag GuessWho if you think Guess Who is going to take down Gale Force in this best of 5. And I'll try to read the chat a little bit. If anyone wants to elaborate on your reasonings, I'll try to mention
just throw a
what you guys
paragraph
say. But the chat is going really fast right now, so I don't know if I'll be able to do that. For now, I'm seeing more Gale Force, I think.
That's it, though.
And that I feel like that would make a lot of sense. But I think something that's pretty interesting here, the fact that Pashy and Freaky, they're from Germany. We're in Germany. Yes. Pashy drove his Mustang to this event, probably on the Autobahn. I wonder how much, like, is there a bit of a home field advantage there? I mean, if I'm Pashy or Freaky, I got to be feeling pretty good, you know, being able to just drive here, and then probably a lot of home field fans in the crowd.
Yeah, but so far, day 1 and day 2 didn't go their way. They have had easy competition when they win, or easy, you know, for this bracket. They beat the dudes twice, but they haven't beaten any of the RLCS teams or any of the rival series teams here. They're 0-2. While Gale Force, all 3 of their games have been against tough competition, and they've mopped the floor with them. So everything on paper says Gale Force, but again, that home field advantage, Guess Who knows?
And there could be a couple, I mean, we heard the crowd for G2 yesterday. There's certainly a North American crowd out here as well, so I'm not too willing to admit a lot of home field advantage.
To be fair, it's a G2 crowd, not a North American crowd. But
you make a good point.
I'm still looking for some top-tier analysis in the chat. Someone said that they love Gale Force, quite simply.
Yeah,
I think
that's solid.
Someone asked me what I had for breakfast, believe it or not.
Did you have a cookie?
I did not have a cookie.
You should have.
I did not have a cookie. I had a wide array of different bread products, some bacon in there too from the hotel breakfast. Thank you for asking. But once again, thank you all you in the Twitch chat providing your top tier analysis for the stream. I'm trying to read through that a little bit. But yes, guys, best of 5, Gale Force against Guess Who. There's no second chances here. It's not double elimination. It's single elimination. And you know, when talking about the routes in these teams and getting to this point, Gale Force pretty much winning all the way through. And I think it's much more of a dramatic story from Guess Who. Who for them to get to this point, where they did really nice in group play in Group 2, where they took out the dudes 3-0. Nice, easy sweep. But then in that matchup yesterday, we saw Guess Who against Dignitas. We had a lot of questions going into that match, and I feel like more or less we're like, all right, Guess Who should take this? But Dignitas took them all the way to 5 games, this rival series team, and ends up taking out Guess Who to emerge as #1 from the bracket, and that dropped down Guess Who to the lower bracket, where they had to go toe-to-toe with the dudes.
Yeah, and 5 again.
Yeah, they were down 2-1 in the series. They had to bring it back. So what do you think about that element here from Guess Who? The fact that they were on the ropes, they were almost out. So this could be more or less a second chance for Guess Who. Do you think they're going to take advantage of that?
Look, there's some positives because you play a lot more games on stage. You have a lot more drama on stage. Gale Force, they haven't had to feel any pressure yet. They've lost 1 game total. So they haven't been versus match point. While Guess Who? They had to win 2 in a row to just get here. So they know that pressure. And obviously Gale Force has been around, and they know pressure as well. But we've seen them crumble under pressure many times. They obviously made 6 grand finals out of 7 so far since this team was created.
Yeah.
But they've only won 1 of them. So there is something about that pressure.
I mean, we certainly know that Guess Who and Fairy Peak specifically used to play with KDOP already over on the previous iteration of Mocket. So, I mean, those guys know exactly how each other plays, but it's...
Yeah.
I think Fairy Peak's a solid player. I think Gale Force knows too much about how they play because they've spent already multiple RLCSs playing all the way against each other so many times. And it's really hard for me to think that Gale Force are going to crack under this pressure because they've made it so many times all the way to the grand final. And Guess Who, as a solid team, it's single elimination. It's only a best of 5. Sure, you could do it, but you got to play a lot better than you did yesterday. It's a mental aspect for them, I think.
But so far, so we're going to get best of 7s later.
Yeah.
You might want to play Gale Force in the best of 5, where you only have to beat them 3 times, not 4. It might be easier to beat Gale Force here, so this might be a better route for Guess Who. But Guess Who, it all comes down to this. On day number 2, when they scored 3 goals, they were 5-0.
Yep.
When they scored 3 or less, or 2 or less, I should say, they were 0-5. And Gale Force only loss was when they got scored on 3 times. So it seems like 3 is that magic number right now. And if Guess Who, they have shown their offense. Fairy Peak can set plays up or score everything, and Pesci as well in the RLCS season number 4, scoring, 23 goals on the final day of the season?
Right.
It's very possible that they can put up some numbers. Gale Force hasn't had to score a lot of goals yet. They only give up 6 goals in 7 games. So they haven't had to feel that pressure yet. That's possible, like if they surprise them with some really good offense. But the problem is Gale Force, when they're the best, it's because
defense.
They play ball possession. They don't even have to play defense as much because they're just like, we're going to back pass nice and gently, just keep ball possession.
That's there too.
Yeah, exactly, and just wait until they get their opportunity to score. But they're never having opportunities against them because they still have the ball. They might not necessarily put it up for a shot, but as long as you control the ball, you don't have to worry about defense, and that's what Gale Force, they do better than anyone.
And that's what G2 even said was the key to victory. They were like, what do you think you got to do to beat teams tomorrow? They're like, get ball control. You get ball control, you win the game.
Yeah, and one more point I want to make. We're about to get into the game, about to get into our predictions, but, Championship Sunday, and we saw it yesterday a little bit too, which player individually can really rise up and show some phenomenal Rocket League when it absolutely matters? I feel like we see that from JNaps a lot with G2 and his runs. Will that be a Turbo here? Will that be a Fairy Peak here? Could it be a singular player that really defines the moment for either of these teams? That being said, it's time to get on into our predictions, and we're going to see what the Twitch chat had to say in just a second. Achieves, we'll start with you.
In terms of players to watch for Guess Who, it's got to be Fairy Peak. He's the man with the plan, like I said. It's got to be him. For Gale Force, I'd probably pick KDOP. He always delivers when you really need him to. But in terms of who I think is going to win, I got to go with Gale Force. There's too much power on that team to go against him.
The best part about this, it's a new day. And we've seen teams from day 1 to day 2 play completely differently.
Like G2.
And I have to say, I did predict it would be Guess Who versus Energy in the finals.
Oh.
Way back.
Well.
And I had Gale Force coming in 5th. So I'm going to stick to it. I'm not sure if I believe it as much as I did back then. Because Gale Force has looked really good. But I'm going to go for the upset. I'm going to go with Guess Who here. They haven't shown it yet. On day 1 and day 2, they didn't look great. But it's a brand new day. It's the first match of the day. And that's usually where you can get some shakiness in. I'm going to go Guess Who here because I think their offense can score.
I had a lot of questions about Gale Force coming to this event. Turbo himself said, you know, they took a break. They hadn't been playing as much. He publicly tweeted, he's like, oh, you're not going to play as well if you don't play as much. A lot of that rhetoric coming into this weekend, and I think the biggest test for Gale Force was their matchup against Fnatic. And that was when I was like, okay, this is going to be the test. Is this the Gale Force we've been looking out for? And I think they answered that question. I think it is. I think Gale Force is back in a big way. My pick is Gale Force here, and a lot of it has to do with how they played yesterday against Fnatic, able to take down that top team, and honestly, I think they did it pretty convincingly, so I have Gale Force as well. And now we get to see what the wonderful Twitch chat has to say. Let's see, percentages, 64% to 36%.
That's close.
I suppose I'm not that surprised about that.
Yeah, I thought it might have been 75-25 because it's Gale Force. Gale Force makes every grand final, so you expect the Twitch chat to vote for them, but it seems like they are sometimes a little bit more negative on Gale Force, that there's more fans sometimes for some of these other teams.
Perhaps that shakiness that led into this tournament could be playing a factor. And of course, you know, guess who's nuts?
And plus, because it's like, maybe they just are bored of Gale Force, because they're at every grand final. Like, come on, can someone else make it?
Well, let's go ahead and invite our commentators into the conversation. Gregan and Shogun, did you get some nice rest last night? How are you feeling right now?
I think we're pretty good, and I can safely say we're not bored of Gale Force. We want to see more Gale Force all the time.
Absolutely. This is going to be a really good game to start us off. EU versus EU. On the side of Guess Who, there is a lot that they can improve from yesterday, and I hope to see them do exactly that.
Well, I can't wait to see how this day unfolds. It's time to get started with our first best of 5. Gale Force against Guess Who. Gregan and Shogun, take it away, guys.
Thank you very much. And I've got a big question. Both these teams had a bit of a rest with their off-season. They've come back in, both looking a little bit under what we saw at the end of last year. But Gale Force have had 3 games here where we've seen Guess Who play a lot more because they have suffered a few losses. I think that's going to help them settle in, but I still think Gale Force in that scenario are better.
It's such a typical Gale Force thing to do, to drop a game on day 1, but then go into the group of death yesterday and just go 6-0.
And still, wow, they lost 1 to Fnatic, I think. But like,
oh yeah, it was the very first one.
That
Apologies.
was still just, it was just Fnatic playing incredibly well. But after that, they managed to prove they are such a strong team, and they score, like they were saying, 3 goals a game, it seems to be, because they are always able to find a gap and still defend at the same time. So many clean sheets on their side.
Yeah, and if you do ask Fnatic exactly what needs to happen, well, you need to get the very first goal against GFE, because that's exactly what they did against Fnatic. As soon as GFE went a goal ahead, they bled their opponents out, forced those mistakes, and capitalized in brutal fashion, which is scary if you're Guess Who, because they were dropping early goals to the dudes very often yesterday within the opening minutes. So the very first thing we're looking for in this series is for that to change.
Yeah, Guess Who were a bit loose in defense at times, a lot of double commits, people coming from awkward angles making those saves. And if that's the case, like you said, and Gale Force get that first goal, then they're going to be dominant. But first game of day 3 of DreamHack Open. We are now in the money. Every win matters.
Let's get to it. 8 teams remain. Only 1 will survive. Gale Force versus Guess Who. As we start off on Manfield, and we might start off with a Guess Who goal. Freaky will turn it in.
Good pressure to start things off here for Guess Who, as Fairy Peak wins that challenge into the middle, finding out Pashi forces the jump from the keeper. And that is a full team play, which is something we didn't see Guess Who do very much. That is what we wanted to see from them, and that's what we got.
Our major complaint yesterday was when things started to go wrong. Guess Who got very individual, kept making mistakes. This man right here, he'll be very happy to have got that first goal. Freaky was not happy with his performances in his final few games. So to get that first goal will really give him that little bit of extra confidence. As Gale Force trapped in the blue side of the field to start off this opening minute. Freaky up on the wall. Has options in field. Pashi isn't going to be able to see any of that, but Fairy Peak will going to put it on target. But only over to Violent Panda. C-Turbo is going to have to try and come back now. He did think that he might be able to get a hold of a pass, but Gale Force have just been constricted ever since we got started. Freaky powers forward, and here comes Fairy Peak. Going to keep this going. Might be able to still boost it over in the corner as well, but Violent Panda does win the challenge for that. And here comes Caleb down to the other end of the pitch. Finally, Gale Force get to see some offense, and let's see if they can do anything with it.
We did mention about that Fnatic game, how Gale Force dropped the first match, and that was because Fnatic went up and maintained the lead. So perhaps a similar storyline here. The Guess Who opening well, Gale Force just loosening up because it is a best of 5. They've got time to get into this game. You have to win 3 games, and that could be a tough challenge against a quality squad like Gale Force.
Absolutely. Gale Force have not had much offensive opportunity, but if they keep getting those infield passes, it'll be very dangerous. 2 players committed on the defense. Turbopulsar gets the block on an oncoming Pashi. You can see Gale Force controlling at least 2/3 of this pitch. They just want to conquer that final little gap before they can tie this game back up. As Guess Who scrambling to hold on to this lead. Turbopulsar, he's got time, he's got options. A demo is actually happening in the back, but Freaky not only avoids it, he got the jump over the top and followed it with a save. Well played by Guess Who.
We're approaching halfway. That early chance seemed to be the only threatening opportunity, and it was done in very quick fashion. So since then, it's been pretty neutral. Defensive rotations have been strong. No one really creating any dangerous opportunities. But that is a beautiful one, Fairy Peak. Crossbar down and away, it's still pressure time.
Freaky will tap the ball down, and this time Gale Force learned their lesson. Do not allow the rebound shot to happen. 2-0 would be detrimental to their chances of taking game 1. K-Dop forcing the ball to the corner. I want to see if Freaky would make a mistake, who does not. Gale Force struggling to really put long-form pressure on the Guess Who half. They had 1 chance that managed to eat up about 30 seconds of the clock, but didn't get any real shots on target. Fairy Peak plays the ball up high. Pashi, he's thinking about it. He's actually meant to get that double tap.
That's not allowed. You can't do that.
Pashi just destroyed Gale Force.
No way did Pashi think to do that. That is incredible awareness that his space is plenty. Normally a defender will be coming towards that because they need to make a save, but you just don't expect someone to shoot. So the keeper stays patient, and Pashi takes it into the net, bouncing it off that wall to himself.
If anyone can see Pashi's in-game avatar, I can assure you that instinct was involved with that goal. Incredible game awareness to put Guess Who up 2-0. And this is a completely different team to the very scrappy Guess Who that we saw yesterday. Now, Violent Panda and K-Dop, very sloppy, sending 2 up to the ball. As Turbo forced to push the ball to the corner. Might find Freaky. As Guess Who just need to settle onto this lead, but it might be difficult when Violent Panda can rocket the ball like that.
Just positioned in front of K-Dop here, looks to move up, collect that boost, and be in a great upfield position for the cherry picker. Fairy Peak, though, almost making that save, predicting the shot at close range, but it does go in off the attempted save. And Gale Force are making an attempt this first game.
Fairy up high. Might be able to get a double tap. He's going to try and follow it. He will get it in.
So controlled.
2-goal lead re-established.
Just see Fairy Peak's touch here. He deliberately hits that, and the point on the backboard that requires the least adjustment, and it required a touch from K-Dop to be saved. K-Dop knew that. He went up early. They know each other so well, K-Dop and Fairy Peak, ex-teammates. Tries to make the save, not able to, and Guess Who back in that 2-goal lead.
Gale and Fairy Peak, a team that dominated the 2 scene for such a long time. Finding themselves today on opposite ends of the pitch, battling it out to reach our semi-finals. Gale Force still have time to make the comeback, but Guess Who's defense being much more solid than previously recognized. K-Dop sets up Violent Panda, who will be blocked by Pashi. Can't quite get the double tap. Turbopulsar takes the shot. There's bumping happening in the background. But Fairy Peak able to avoid. Gale Force have tried to be physical, but every single time, Guess Who slip away, put themselves into the offense. Shot is blocked, but still, it just seems like Guess Who are clinging on to Gale Force's backboard, trying to cause opportunities, and that is going to be a little bit closer.
Here's K-Dop on the breakaway. He is used to efficiently sending that ball to the net on low boost. That's such a 1v1 situation. You see an empty net and a returning player, and you've got to beat them there. So many people mess those up, hit it out of their control, and allow the returning player to get it, but no, K-Dop does send it home, and that was due to a little bit of an overcommit from Guess Who, though.
All Turbo shot on target, and Fairy will be there. It was scary here, Greg, and Guess Who need to survive just a little while longer. K-Dop can't quite get there, and Pashi hitting with the rear end will solidly get the ball away. Freaky wants to get the block, can't quite get there. Still going to be dangerous, will touch the floor. Guess Who take game 1.
Wasn't the most pretty of wins, but they got those early goals which put them in the lead and essentially won them the game. A few brilliant goals, Pashi with that read off the backboard and Fairy Peak's backboard shot as well. That's going to give a question to Gale Force. They probably weren't feeling this game to be as close because, as they said on the desk, this has always gone in favour of Gale Force in the past. Never before has this lineup of Freaky, Pashi and Fairy Peak beaten this lineup of K-Dot, Violent Panda and Turbo.
Well, if they keep things like this happening, there's no reason why they can't make this their first. Pashi is just... I mean, we said that it was probably down to a lax team secret display on the final day of RLCS, but every single time we see him get chances in offense, he proves that he does have that offensive prowess.
Now, that chance there where Pashi early on shows Gale Force he can score from unusual angles, that is conditioning Gale Force to rush their defense because they're scared if they give space, they might create an opportunity. There was an opportunity later on where Pashi went for it again, and the clear from Gale Force was a little bit loose because they wanted to get it away as soon as possible, and that opens up chances for Freaky and Fairy Peak to pick it up in the midfield and send it back in. So those shots aren't just important for scoring the goal, but they're telling the opposition what you can do.
Game number 2, Champions Field. Fairy Peak might be able to get set up to Freaky straight away. Almost much the same as game 1. Pashi putting off the backboard. Freaky will be able to go yet again, but Turbo Pulsar is there on time, and now we'll transition into the orange half. Gale Force almost handing away an early goal yet again.
Just shows you how strong the kickoff of Guess Who has been so far. It can be a part of the game that wins you plenty of matches because it is when it's most predictable. You know where everyone is, you know how much boost everyone has, and you can use that fact to score some early goals. But alas, it has gone back to neutral play.
Fairy moving back. It's actually going to miss. Thankfully for him, he has got Pashi in a position to probably get a better touch than Fairy would have got anyway.
I wonder if he called him off.
Might very well have been, as Pashi was back post. Fairy will miss that time. That one's definitely a whiff. And Turbo will pick up the first goal for Gale Force.
Now, I like passing out of defense, but that pass creates a very awkward touch for Fairy Peak, who rushes it thinking, oh no, Gale Force are coming in, which they were. Turbo Pulsar was there, but he was just waiting to see if the miss came, and it did, putting Gale Force in the lead. And we mentioned how tough it is to play against Gale Force when they go 1 goal up.
It's going to be even more tough if Turbo Pulsar managed to make contact. Team that is very capable of changing on the fly. Violent Panda will have plenty of time to assess his options. His option is to smack the ball very hard. That's K-Dot. Just wants to see if Gale Force can get number 2. Now an opportunity for Pashi. He plays up on the wall. Fairy Peak's going to try and still boost down the other end of the pitch. Maybe be a target man. We've already seen the incredible angles that Fairy Peak can shoot from. This one's dead on. Tries to get the double tap. Blocks the ball. Fairy Peak. I said he's the best player in the world. He didn't show it yesterday, but today, I'm sorry, I don't think it can be argued.
How on earth has Fairy Peak just blocked 3 defending players and thread it through the middle of them? Fairy Peak, you're so smart to just loosely touch that towards them.
And often the Octane is said to be a much more powerful challenge car, as Fairy is going to put this in for the double. And guess who have retaken the lead?
Freaky puts that in the middle, sees Turbo Pulsar a little bit loose, sends it round the back of him, centering it for his teammate, who has 1 to beat, Violent Panda on the goal line, and he creates that mystery. Where's he going to hit it? And he hits it to the far corner. And now Guess Who are back in the lead. We haven't seen that yet in this tournament. As soon as Gale Force have gone up, they've never gone back down.
Absolutely. Usually their style revolves around making their opponents desperate to create opportunities. Guess Who counter that by just scoring immediately afterwards. And now it's Gale Force who are going to be desperate. 3 minutes remaining. They would not like to put themselves in a position where they will be forced to reverse sweep Guess Who. Violent Panda.
Oh, the double
ball up
block.
high. Might be able to get to a second touch, as he is blocked by Pashi. Fairy Peak. 0 boost for him. Will end up leaving for Pashi. Still hasn't got any boost from the middle, so he's going to be forced to retreat all the way back. Probably for the better, as Violent Panda set up K-Dot, and now double players committed to the same ball in the net. Guess Who get away with that? Very sloppy, yet somehow very effective.
Yeah, all 3 of them blocking that one. Very different scenario to the attempt at the other end, where Gale Force let it go past all 3 of them.
Now another shot. Pashi should be able to get to that.
Guess who are just seeing the ball incredibly well. Every touch they're making has just been so much stronger than yesterday. And that is something that we said before. Day by day, players do fluctuate, and this is Guess Who at their best.
That's the reason why we do have it over multiple days. Sure, you can be good for one day. Sure, you can be good for two. But to be good for the entire weekend is something special. And that is a special goal for Guess Who.
Pashi finding the gap in the net, hitting it at power. Freaky, rather than sending it straight forward, knows his teammates to the right and lofts it in the danger zone.
And that's really important as well for Guess Who. Yes, we now know Fairy Peak is stepping up on the stage, but to have Freaky and Pashi able to come together to create a goal like that, especially after Freaky made such a terrible mistake earlier on, which led to Gale Force's goal, just shows that the entire team is starting to really step it up.
As we see 2 minutes left now. 3-1 is the scoreline. Last game, it was a similar story. Gale Force were able to get it close, but can they get it all the way back to a level scoreline?
Gonna be dropping down, low boost on the keeper as Violet Panda is there in time. Fairy Peak wants to keep it out of the reach of Kadop, who is still able to just about stretch to meet the ball. These taps from Gale Force are not going to threaten Guess Who. Big shot from Violet Panda. 2 players committed unnecessarily. And now Gale Force have an opportunity to continue their offense. Should have been cleared pretty clearly on their original attempt. Turbo taps up. Maybe? Can't quite make very good contact. It's going to be followed up by Violet Panda, who races to the corner. Kadop is around. He's going to be one-on-one against Freaky, who will happily take control of a very loose touch. Final minute now. 2 goals is the difference. Gale Force not looking like their usual perfect selves. Guess Who are really dragging them into the dogfight.
You've got to remember as well that this tournament is the first of 2018, and a lot of these teams are considering this a big practice tournament. Test themselves out against the best in the world. And as mentioned before, this Guess Who team have never beaten Gale Force. And if you're going to start the year in a good way, what better way than to beat the world beaters themselves, which you've never been able to do before.
Very Peak, he's got 0 boost. We already saw Leffermere do this sort of damage back on day 1. Couldn't quite have the same result. He did allow his team to return to the rotation. And another shot will force more time off the clock. Turbo Pulsar will need to get this in before it hits 0, otherwise they won't have an opportunity. They will not get that chance to even have a kickoff or a goal, as Guess Who go up to match point.
This is huge. 3 match point opportunities now for Guess Who. And they have been talking about how much better they can perform, as they have not been reaching that level yet, and we have seen it now. But we need to see Gale Force now. They have been in these pressure situations so many times. And we said before, they always seem to make the final. But at the moment, they have got 1, 2, 3 final chances to push on through this tournament.
I actually wanted to talk about this during the game, but because the second goal came so quickly, I actually couldn't. Fairy Peak makes very smart use of the Batmobile hitbox. It's not as tall as the Octanes, which means when we get front-to-front challenges, usually the Octane is at an advantage. But if Fairy Peak can set that sort of position up, flip his car on its side and use the length of the Batmobile, then he's at an advantage.
And in that situation, he was 1v3. He knew that all he had to do was take as many players out of the game as possible. Rather than shooting it, where they would have been able to use the pace of the ball and send it away, he got a loose touch off of the wheels of his car and followed it up for the block. And it's those kind of decision-making that is fairly new now. These players are opting to do unusual touches to catch people off guard, take them out of the game and build up that pressure. No longer are the days of hitting it as hard as you can, Shogun.
That's why I'm not pro anymore.
We are now in the smart stage of Rocket League, and Fairy Peak, one of the smartest of the bunch.
Freaky will immediately tap it down. We've seen early goals in every single game so far. Will we get ourselves yet another one as Turbo will chase down in the corner? Fairy Peak going to try and just missile himself towards the ball, but cannot quite make contact as Gale Force consolidating early pressure. Shot will ricochet off the post. Follow-up off the backboard. It will now be Turbo, who is shut down by Freaky. Good start here, though, from Gale Force. I'm sure they would have liked to have picked up at least 1 goal from it, though.
Fair play to Freaky there on his own, predicting the shot, sends it away, but again, Gale Force need to be creating better chances than this. We've seen them in the past. They take the opportunities when they're presented to them, no matter how hard it is. That needs to start happening now and get an early lead and maintain it.
Freaky clears long. Pashi can try and chase down. Gale is just about there. Pashi actually has a target man. It will be Freaky trying to chase down. But Turbo is up in the air just beforehand, and now big mistake for Fairy Peak. Does get faked out by a charging Violent Panda. Infield pass will be read by the defense. Just seems like the age of the infield pass sort of came and went just as quickly. As you said, you have to vary up your offense these days.
I almost feel like the high FOV is becoming even more popular these days, knowing that you need to see that infield player. I recently changed to 110 FOV just for that reason. You can see those players in the middle. And it's meaning that you're able to intercept that pass earlier and not let them take that shot. But we are seeing a 0-0 game to start with here. And I want to see a bit of spice come out of this team. K-Dot, Violent Panda, and Turbo, all incredible players. They can do it themselves.
Long clear, we come towards the end of the second minute. Unlike the other games, no early goals to start us off, as Gale Force chase a goal that could potentially keep them in this tournament. Have a long clear. Pashi over to Fairy. Going to be bouncing off the backboard. Dangerous to Gale Force. 2 players committed in the corner. That's going to mean Fairy Peak has to get all the way back. Violent Panda was bumping, however, so his retreat will be delayed. Very dangerous. Guess who cannot afford to go back to old habits and go double tapping, because Gale Force are still an incredibly dangerous team.
At the halfway mark, just a few too many touches taking players out of this game allows Violent Panda the empty net, and that started from Turbo Pulsar, not opting to shoot the net, opting to bounce it off the wall to where his teammates were. Gale Force go up, and the real question again, can they maintain it? They went up last game, and it was taken away from them. They need to score another 2 or 3 goals, maybe just 1, to make sure they feel comfortable, because they will be feeling nervy right now.
Yeah, they'll be wanting the next time of this being going for, because Gale Force really dropped that lead very quickly last time around. This time, they've at least managed to keep a hold of it, settle themselves back down to their gameplay. Turbo takes the shot. It's going to be an awkward save for Pashi.
Left that late.
Kind of difficult to get to. It wasn't quite in a position where he could jump and then go for the right jump, and he couldn't quite jump straight up. Had to try and just reposition himself very slightly mid-air.
Just so aware of the point at which that ball is in. He trusts himself to leave it to the final moment so he can get the best clear possible.
Be dangerous. Turbo looking to clear, but it's only over to Fairy Peak. Guess who controlling the midfield is Fairy Peak. Has got Pashi as an option. Will instead be Freaky all the way back as Turbo Pulsar's touch just seems like an attempt to clear. Pashi seems to be a target man. He's holding himself in the corner very often as he attempts to just tap the ball straight down to a teammate. Something that really hasn't been that effective ever since Sad Jr. used it pre-RLCS.
Yeah, I would say Pashi today, a term I used to use in cricket is he's seeing it like a beach ball. Just able to hit that ball no matter what, and that is so vital being one of those upfield players, because as long as you get a touch on it, it's going to cause disruption, it's going to cause confusion, and he's so far had a pretty high rate of connection.
Turbo follows up. Freaky, though, looking much more solid since his earlier mistake. He's mostly been the man to be forced on defense. Violent Panda looking for the tap. Might be able to follow this. Will be the setup for Turbo Pulsar, who's going to get yet another tap. Finally, someone's going to take a shot from Gale Force. You've hit it 3 times in that general direction. No one with a shot on target. Very wasteful from Gale Force, and they'll be forced to regret it.
With just 27 seconds left, a mispositioning on the goal line from K-Dot, just finding himself too far across. Freaky sees a gap, and back post and in. That is the smallest window of opportunity, and Freaky found it. Such good control by them, and the scores are level here, and 1 goal could be the difference between Gale Force being swept out of the competition as the #1 seeds.
Turbo with the clear, over to Freaky. Bounce the ball off the side, opportunities for Guess Who if they can consolidate. Opportunity for a negative angle touch though from Turbo Pulsar, very difficult to pull off, and he couldn't quite make it. Pashi and Fairy Peak both up in the air. Freaky will probably have to be forced to defend to end this game. In fact, no, he moves forward for the shot. Very, very weak, however. And a goal is now crucial for Gale Force. They must score, otherwise they are eliminated. from the DreamHack Open. Violent Panda with the tap down. Fairy Peak will win the ball. As Guess Who attempt to transition. Gale running forward. Takes it past one. Fairy Peak tries to just jump straight up. Opportunities for Gale Force. We've seen them to be a little bit wasteful with their possession previously. They need to convert.
So smart by Pashi. Last man keeps the ball close to himself so that he can always force the challenge. But now Gale Force have still got that ball going towards the orange net. It's going to take one good shot to end this game for them. Oh, so close at this moment.
Very taking over. Seems like Guess Who's struggling to play the ball out. As they are running low on boost overall, Pashi will use the major side boost to attempt to launch a clear, but once again, Gale Force just take the ball, pull back the slingshot, launch it back in, and Turbo Pulsar will keep this series going.
Superb positioning by Violent Panda in that situation. Reads the game perfectly up on the wall and finds his teammate with the infield pass we were talking about not being so effective. This time it was a new angle, down from the wall, creating that power. Turbo Pulsar spotted a gap. We'll get to see that one again.
Absolutely, and the infield pass, whilst during open play, can be very difficult to really pull off because everyone is working in motion. For Guess Who, they've been stuck on defense for so long. Usually when that happens, you're just sort of trapped in your own goal, constantly turning 180, slowing yourself down, meaning it's so much more difficult to get forward for the challenge. So very smart from Gale Force to recognize that and use the newly created space.
I also like how Turbo Pulsar shot low. They've been hitting that backboard and the crossbar a lot so far this series.
Almost infuriatingly.
Yeah, and I think Turbo Pulsar just said, I'm going to go for a bottom corner, because at least that way I know the only challenge is width or the goalie, and I'm close enough that the power should take the goalie out of action. But now it's looking more likely for Gale Force. When it was 2-0, you're thinking, well, there's 3 games they've got to win in a row. Now it's only 2. It's just getting easier and easier for them, and as they warm up, we saw against Fnatic, once they got going, they looked unbeatable. Will that happen here? Have they loosened up on stage, ready to take down Guess Who?
That really is the question. Remember, this is our very first match. We have 7 for you today.
Yes.
We have got Rocket League on top of Rocket League on top of Rocket League. And speaking of Rocket League, let's watch some more Rocket League, shall we? Game 4 between Guess Who and Gale Force.
We are at Neo Tokyo.
Violent Panda taking early control. Last game was the first time we didn't see a goal within the opening minute. I'm sure Gale Force would not like that to be the same. Violent Panda doing some damage, forcing the double commit from Guess Who. It's one that I won't necessarily be chastising them for because he's getting harassed. You just need to make sure someone is there for the save.
It needed a reaction. Double commits when you're both reacting. As long as one of you saves it, it's better than neither of you going. And that's always the mindset. There's not enough time to communicate it like other double commits. So yes, the right decision and the right save was made.
Hashi, he's got Freaky in support. Wants to play it up the wall. That corner really is like my favorite place to see what players will do because you have to be so creative just to create any sort of opportunity. As you have got limited options. Infield pass, Hashi puts the ball up high. He does bait out Violent Panda off the crossbar. Gale Force came that close to being 1 goal down. Now they will transition. Turbo Pulsar has ball control. Didn't pick up the side boost. Does try and set up K-Dop, who will think better of moving towards a well-defended touch. K-Dop yet again. Guess Who finding 2 players in the same position. Multiple occasions throughout this last minute. Violent Panda over to Turbo. Back over to Violent Panda. Still Guess Who holding players back, timing their challenges very well.
Gale Force players bumping there. It did actually create K-Dop a delayed opportunity forward. But it does affect your rhythm. If you start getting in the way of each other, get near to each other.
They're actively looking for this. Violent Panda just tapped it once and then went hunting. It's exactly how they played when they defeated Method in Game 7 of the upper bracket finals back in Washington.
Yeah, there's no reason why on your return back to home, you can't just bump a player en route, and it does so much work if you get a good bump, especially if it's the last player back. But this game, not too many chances. There was that one Fairy Peak off the crossbar, but other than that, both teams defending very well.
K-Dop launching back towards the orange half. Both teams just don't really want to take control just now, rather see who can get the ball to bounce off the backboard, and it was Gale Force. Unless someone is usually there for the half volley, then it's typically the way that these long ball plays end up finishing. 2 minutes 20 remaining. Still 0-0, but that could be about to change anytime soon. K-Dot forced to challenge. Fairy Peak will try and turn around. Turbo Pulsar and him both go pretty much even with the aerial challenges. Now Turbo up on the wall, went searching. It looks like he just knew Pashi was going to try and go for the wall clear. Going to be very difficult to try and get a bump from that position. Violent Panda, shot on target, will be saved by Fairy Peak. Now Freaky, infield pass to Pashi, off the backboard, should be gobbled up by the Gale Force defense. And launched back over to Guess Who will start back again from square one.
That infield pass, they were looking to throw it back up to Pashi. You could see the way the two of them looked at each other in the air. But it is a dunk from Violent Panda that gets the first goal. Just being a nuisance upfield, as we said, can be so dangerous.
Yeah, Fairy Peak ended up backflipping there. Someone too close, that was Freaky. And Pashi just tried to launch as quickly as possible. It actually surprises me a little bit. Guess Who have typically always aimed for the corner with their saves whenever they're in a tough defensive position. So for the fact that Pashi tried to launch outfield surprises me a little bit.
Well, it didn't work out too good for him there, but that one goal coming in fairly late in the grand scheme of things, a low-scoring series so far. It's going to be tough for Guess Who to find another chance.
It's the same case with Fnatic yesterday, where they had a very slow-paced game, much like this one. Allowed the goal late, and then they just couldn't find a way back. Freaky will offer that chance back to Pashi. Yes. That is how you play a tough situation.
K-Dot drops that into the middle. Fairy Peak could have done anything with that ball, but he chose the best option to set up the full team play. Zigzag passes all the way to the goal, and the defense was left on their heels. They could not move as it was played all around them. Guess Who back in the game?
Every single time Gale Force look like they can take a lead and capitalize and squeeze out Guess Who, it is taken away from them just like that. 50 seconds remaining. Who is going to take this series? I honestly have no idea. Freaky. You're watching as Pashi launches the ball long. That could be on target. K-Dot forced to turn around. Freaky now back into the corner. Pashi thinking about turning around for the ball. It's going to be Fairy Peak as the final man back. But on the wall now, looking for Pashi. Can get it off the backboard. Follow-up is available. That bounce down was the last thing Guess Who wanted. Gale Force finally able to take control of the situation. It's going to be a very awkward position for them. That could launch all along, but just not quite on target. Violent Panda has got time to take control. Nice boost steal. Will mean Violent Panda cannot do too much of it. Still 1-0. One more opportunity for either team. It will be for Guess Who. Violent Panda is on the wall yet again. I still think he's found any boosts since earlier. Freaky can put the ball up the top, off the crossbar. Okay, let's have some overtime, shall we?
The second overtime in a row, and to set it into it, Freaky crossbar and away. And Violent Panda sends us to game 5 in the first 7 seconds of overtime. Oh, that was an exhilarating 30 seconds if I've ever seen it.
It's over?
It's over.
What just happened?
Not quite yet. We've got another one. We said 2 games ago, there's 3 chances for Gale Force to lose. 3 chances to be knocked out. And they said, no, we don't want to go home yet. We want to go home when we win.
Wow. Okay. Game 5 now looms. And we take a look at what was the final opportunity for Guess Who. That's how close this was. That's how close Gale Force were to being out of this tournament, and it wasn't even in their hands.
Freaky will be feeling rough after that miss. Fairy Peak gave him the dream pass. That ball was stationary in the air. Set up on a tee for him to hit top right corner, and he just went a little bit too high. And you got to be feeling for Guess Who now, because they've not only have they just lost 2 games in a row, but they've lost by 1 goal in overtime when all they had to do was score.
Trying to see Guess Who and what exactly they're saying on their cameras right now, because Freaky not only did he sort of make that mistake and not finish off the series, but to make that mistake and then immediately be scored on, you've now got a minute of just almost awkward silence as you try to think to yourself, yeah, sorry guys.
That's where Pashi's got to be the captain. Settle them down and get them back into this game, otherwise Gale Force will just go away with it as they did against Fnatic.
Violent Panda will take early control. We are on Manfield for our final match of this series. Fairy Peak probably didn't want to see much of the ceiling from his original touch. Shot from Freaky on target, but nothing that will trouble K-Dop too much. Be interesting to see what pace both teams go for. Turbopulsar needs to get the save. He's not there in time. Guess who will take the lead?
Fairy Peak has been setting up goal after goal, and here, off of his ex-teammate K-Dop, sends that into the middle, gives Turbo a tough situation, has to try and meet that ball from the wall, but instead Pashi almost delays his shot, doesn't rush it, and sends it past Turbopulsar as he flies by, and that puts Guess Who in the lead early.
That's exactly what they needed, considering the sucker punch that was that previous game. They just bounce back. Now shot on target, almost made two. Violent Panda puts it over to Turbopulsar. Now K-Dop up on the wall. Turbo is a target man in field, however it's going to be very difficult to set up anything for K-Dop, and he will not be able to. Two players committed on the wall now for Guess Who. Fairy Peak moving for take the shot off the side. Guess Who just going to hold their lines. Pass in field, shots on target.
So good.
And the hometown boys have just made a major stride to the semi-finals.
If you watched Guess Who yesterday, you'd think they didn't pass ever. If you watch them today, you'd think they pass every time they can, and it has just been so apparent because they are getting so many opportunities. This game alone, they've got 3 in the first minute. 2 of them have been converted, and Gale Force will be feeling nervy right now.
This could be 3, almost turned in. Turbopulsar gets there just in time. A 3-goal lead would be almost insurmountable. Gale Force were 2 games net down. Now they find themselves 2 goals down. They've got 3 minutes and 30 seconds remaining to turn around their fortunes. Violent Panda, he's got Turbopulsar to his left. It was covered. Pashi coming through at the perfect angle to shut that down. Now Demo in the background. Potential setup. Freaky does end up missing. Now Fairy Peak has to retreat. K-Dop launches the ball long off the backboard. No one there to challenge except for Pashi. Very much needed. Gale Force trying to just hit the ball as hard as possible. Cause Guess Who to be out of position and drag 1 goal back. Violent Panda over in the corner. Tries to play it out. K-Dop can think about it. Ends up backing away from his attempt to challenge. As Turbo will be one-on-one against Pashi. He's going to try and go around the world. Fairy Peak can get to that. Guess Who doing a very good job of their positioning. Spacing out. Infield pass yet again. Gale Force read it this time, but could it be too little, too late? They need a goal. They need it soon. K-Dop goes all the way.
Goes underneath.
We have a 1-goal game.
K-Dop in so much control, stays close to that ball, and at the final moment, ducks down below and takes it through Fairy Peak. We said these 2 were ex-teammates. They know each other well, but so many goals have been caused by those 2 in a battle, and it's only going to get more.
Freaky over in the corner. Gale Force have got 2 minutes and 20 to find 1 more. Then they need to get another after that. Not as important right now as the first one. Violent Panda off the backboard. Freaky gets the clear this time around.
Fairy Peak
and now
K-Dop.
Fairy, he's on the chase. We saw this yesterday, how he is the man that will charge forward. He is not the first defensive player. That will be Freaky. And considering Freaky has been probably the most shaky player from Guess Who this entire tournament, that is a huge burden on his shoulders. Fairy loitering, grabbing boost. Freaky first on the challenge, solid thus far.
Takes
Beats out
the game.
2. There's an opportunity. Turbopulsar is rotating back, can get there in time. A 2-goal lead re-established for Guess Who could mean the end. Pashi up off the wall. K-Dop turns around. Wants to launch long. He's got Violent Panda to aim for. On target. Saved just in time from Fairy Peak. The only man who could get to it. Another infield pass taken, but not dangerous. Gregan, 1 minute 20. 1 goal separating. Could be 2. Pashi will say we are going through.
Freaky taking out player after player this game and opens up the chance for Pashi, who narrowly beats out K-Dot to the shot. That is the Season 4 Golden Striker, and he has woken up today in day 3.
It's that corner every single time that has been a problem spot for Gale Force. Guess who? Flying high right now. And now Gale Force with it all to do. Violent Panda looking for Turbo Pulse. It's going to be so awkward with that little boost. Violent Panda looking for K-Dot. Can't quite get there in time. Another big clear. Guess who are throwing everything behind their defense, and Gale Force are throwing everything on their offense. Another big clear, and we are back to a nail-biter.
Goal, the difference. Fairy Peak centers that to Violent Panda for the long shot clear. Freaky sitting too far up, not expecting the opportunity to be given away, and Gale Force are trying their best to come back.
Guess who just thought a third goal would be the end? They tried to everything to get a hold of it. Now they are in an absolutely tense situation. One goal is all it will take. Turbo, he's going to have enough boost to keep this going. Ends up dropping it down instead because he actually ran out. I will correct myself there. Violent Panda off the wall. He's got Turbo Pulse, gets the bounce. Not quite able to get the shot. K-Dot over to Turbo. Will be shut down by Freaky, who has just looked so much more decisive. Violent Panda off the backboard will be there from Fairy Peak. 18 seconds remaining in this match. Shot from Turbo Pulse cannot come through. And now Freaky will chase up, try and waste time. Pashi back into the corner. K-Dot, his touch is not great, can be followed up. Not there in time, however. Violent Panda will take over. Looking for K-Dot over in the middle. Fairy Peak shuts that down at the final. Last hurdle.
Ball down.
Must touch the floor for this game to be over. Violent Panda gets it back over to the corner. It's all over. Oh, is it? Pashi just needs to tap down.
Guess who?
Off through to the semi-finals.
Guess who beats the unbeatable Gale Force? They have overcome the challenges of last year and have taken down the #1 seed and go on to the semi-finals. What a start!
6 more, guys. Don't worry. If you don't survive, we'll keep you going anyway. What a series and what a result for Guess Who. Their first time they have ever toppered Gale Force, and what a time to do it. They move on. I want to use the reclining feature yet again, but we have got loads left to do still. Wow.
All I can say,
10 out of 10?
Yes, 10 out of 10 start. And I hope we hit 11 out of 10, because whoever Guess Who's augurs, they must be watching right now and going,
2 thumbs up. You did well.
Baby, we picked well. Because I want to hear what Gibbs will be saying, the smug man himself, after he predicts Guess Who. Axel Toss, back to you.
Thank you, Greg and Shogun. Excellent commentary as always. What an amazing start to DreamHack Open Day 3. Guess Who barely holding on and taking out Gale Force, which means Gale Force is no longer in our tournament. Guess Who advancing on to the next round. Guys, what a match that was. At first I thought, you know, maybe Guess Who has this. They went up 2-0, Gale Force fighting back, and then even in the final moments, there was no safety there for Guess Who.
Yeah, we saw Violent Panda 2 overtime goals in a row, games 3 and 4, and you're like, can Gale Force actually do this? But the magic number came into play. 3 goals in game #1, game #2, and game #5 for Guess Who. Their offense was just too much for Gale Force. Gale Force just didn't have enough in the tank on their own offensive end. Hats off to Guess Who. They're on to the semis, but they have so much more work to do.
I definitely got to learn a little bit about your number theory, because there's definitely something to it.
I'm finally right. It just took to day 3.
But another unfortunate number. K-Dot coming into this tournament, $92,000 earned, still not at 100K. He goes out in 8th place. Gale Force takes home $1,500 as a team.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people expecting Gale Force to go a little bit further, but Guess Who's saying, nope, your path stops here, and we have Pashi on standby for an interview. Pashi, I need your immediate reactions right now. How are you feeling going into that match, and how are you feeling right now, man?
I'm feeling really sad, to be honest. Nah, I'm just kidding. we're super happy. And like I think the first game we were leading 2-1. I think it was the 0 second, and Freaky had the free go, and I was like, don't hit the crossbar, because he always hits it. And he hit it again, and I was like, no, please, not game 5, but we won it, so I'm happy.
So Pashi, between games 4 and 5, when Freaky hit that crossbar, did you talk to him during that 1 minute of downtime, or was it more just everyone's quiet and focused for game 5, or did you put some words in for the team heading into Game 5?
Normally I say just take your time and focus when you have like a free shot, and then I just said like let's just hit the crossbar, like don't score, just hit crossbars, and then I said maybe it helps us score. Because I always say, like, try to score, and now I just said hit the crossbar, and then it worked.
All right. Put it in the top shelf, it'll go in. So, you've made the semifinals. Do you want PSG or Flipside next?
I don't know. I like to play both. I don't know. I like Cooks. I like Bluey, so I don't know.
I guess we'll get to find out.
It's 50-50.
All right, well, Pashi, congratulations on your victory over Gale Force. Looking forward to seeing you in the semifinals.
Thanks, man. See ya.
Pashi from Guess Who. What an incredible match to start things off. And honestly, it kind of looked one-sided at first, but Gale Force just doesn't go away. Let's take another look at the highlights of that match as Guess Who able to take out Gale Force Esports from DreamHack Open 2018.
And it seemed like both teams, it was a little too early for them to play. They were complaining on Twitter a bit like, oh man, we got to wake up a bit early. Pashi with a great double tap. There was some mistakes, but both teams were not kind of converting on him. Fairy Peak gets a dunk there, but it was dunks back and forth between him and K-Dop.
Yeah, honestly, this series could have easily went 3-0. Gale Force got away with a lot of things, and it took both teams a fair bit of time to get going, but at the end, in that crucial Game 5, that was when Guess Who said, all right, we're not letting you get away with any more. They walked all over them, and they earned their way to the semifinal.
But the team captain, Violent Panda, was making play after play for Gale Force, trying to keep him in it. And K-Dop, there's his dunk, but in the end, Guess Who takes it after they almost blew it after Game 4, hitting the crossbar at 0 seconds, but they're through. Still 2 more games to go for them, 2 best-of-7s.
And they finally beat Gale Force.
Yeah.
There you go.
And I feel like you could really tell they really wanted it. But then there was also a moment there where it's Gale Force. They are champions. Every single player on that team, especially when K-Dop was able to pull off that ridiculous angle that we saw in the highlights. I'm like, this is Gale Force. You can't just put them away. And they fought the entire way through, all the way to Game 5. Even in the final seconds, we thought there could have been a chance for them to come back. But ultimately, Guess Who advancing on to the semifinals. Still plenty of matches coming your way here from Leipzig at the DreamHack Open. Coming up next, it's the next European quarterfinal. It's Flipside Tactics going up against PSG. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back.